final speaker is Mr. Louis Singh, who we must thank again for, at the very last moment, agreeing to speak. He's the former mayor of Port of Spain, and in that sense represents a political voice, although he will qualify his own statement in that regard. So please welcome the former mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Louis Singh, who will spend this 20 minutes.
Good morning, ladies. Good morning, ladies. Morning, gentlemen. I see so few of you here this morning. What? It's not important to men, clearly. Let me first of all say that I really came to hear the mayor this morning. I came to hear him because he's a young man. I had the distinct privilege of tutoring, in the sense that as mayor, he also served as my deputy mayor. And I made it a point of business that I never took a meeting at City Hall, whether it was an internal meeting or an external meeting, and we did have a lot of external meetings. People may not know it, but the job of a mayor is a very, very difficult one for Port of Spain. I don't know what the other places. And I never took a meeting without having the present mayor present. And at times when he would have been distracted with his phone and what have you, I would say to him, "Young man, be about your father's business." And so I really came to hear him this morning because I felt he would have had something meaningful to say. When I came in the room, my good friend and brother, Professor Watson, I was having a chat with another professor in the back there, Dr. Ryan, and he asked me whether I would agree to speak. Now, I'm really throwing caution to the wind here this morning, because whatever I say here this morning comes from deep within and is not something that I would have. Normally I would write my stuff and think it out a couple of days, change it up to suit the audience and what have you. So whatever I'm saying here to you this morning on this issue of violence against women comes from deep within. Let me say, women have, for reasons best known to many, I wouldn't say man nor woman, have been placed in positions in this society, and I guess throughout the region, that could be considered less than desirable. Be it cultural, religious, ancestry, you name it. Women, for all these reasons, have been placed in positions that has not suggested equity or equality, nor mutual respect. And so our women folk have always been at a disadvantage in this society of ours. Now I know these are subjects that have been debated from the day this university started a social sciences and a history department. And that is quite some time. And I would have thought that over this long period, we would have found the answers to the challenge of violence against women. But we haven't. And I dare say, the issue of violence against women, in my view, and it is my considered position, based on all the information I have, that it has grown progressively worse as the years have gone by. So that we have not gone forward. I truly believe, as a society, we have gone backwards insofar as it relates to the safety and security and the equity and the presence of women in our lives. I think we undervalue it too often. I need to place on the record that I can't see it any other way. That women deserve the very best always. I can't help but place it on the record. I am who I am, largely because of the influences of many women in my life. I came from a family of 5 girls and 3 boys. I am the 5th child following 4 girls. So I was afforded the privilege of being equal to my big sisters and I remain forever grateful. I am fashioned, or rather I was fashioned in an environment where my mother and sisters were, in my eyes, perfect. And you have to forgive me for that. I still feel so today, even though at times I, much younger than they are, provide counsel on many familiar matters. And so I have always sought perfection in all my undertakings. And this has nothing to do with women or men. Whatever I do, I want perfection. I wish to also place on record that some of my best work, you all may not think that I have done any good work at all, but I believe I have done good work, a lot of good work. And some of my best work has been achieved in concert with women whom I consider to be great people. Not necessarily great women, great people. If Eastern Credit Union is an institution of pride to people in the East-West Corridor and other places today, much has to do with a lady called Linda Bessor, who served as the first manager and general manager. And she was there during the 11 years I served as president when we created Eastern Credit Union into what it is. The woman whom I speak of, Linda Bessor, is my eldest sister. I want to put it on the records because people are trying to change the history. In reality, it is clear for all to see that our women in Trinidad and Tobago at all levels are outperforming all others. I wouldn't say men, boys, you name it. They are simply outperforming all others. And as a university professor, you must see the grades. And am I lying? So that is a reality. I don't know if that has something to do with men, and because they are being placed, as it were, on the side of the woman. They're so used to women being behind them. And I'm talking about whether it's ancestral, religious, or otherwise. We have a situation where women are now walking side by side, and men simply cannot deal with that. How then do you address the violence against women in our society? The statistician gave us the facts there. 300 women murdered between 2005 and 2015. And in 2010, 26 were murdered and so on. And she spoke about murders. I cannot get used to the violence I read of each day in the newspaper against women. I cannot get used to the idea of the violence that I read of altogether in this country. This is a small country with a small population with tremendous resources, but yet people killing each other. Something must be wrong, and we must be doing very little right in this society. Only this morning I read in the press of an attack on a young woman with acid by somebody who was, I think, was a jilted lover. So women, when they move up in life and they are no longer satisfied with the burdens of the relationship, they try to get out of it. And men respond in the way they have been responding. I think when you get left, you have to put your tail between your legs, reassess why you are there where you are, and come again. Too often, men cannot deal with the reality that the woman no longer has an interest in him or her. I hear the official position that men are also victims, but I don't see men dying. I don't see men getting acid baths, and the list goes on and on. And so all the influences of today, 2016, are coming to bear on this society and on this debate. It is a good thing that in 2016 there's the internet. There's a good thing that in 2016 we are able to mobilize thousands of signatures to say to the mayor, pack up and go. it is a good thing that we can get people to see that a woman is being abused in a home in the worst way, so that the police can make interventions. If these things happened 15 years ago, nothing would have come of it. And it might be that maybe it have more. But I want to believe too that it is the convergence of all the technology and the trading in information between one person and another. Is almost like that. That is what is creating all of us to have a stronger and better appreciation of where we are on this subject of women and violence against women in Trinidad and Tobago. If a nation cannot protect its most vulnerable, it is, in my view, not a nation. Trinidad and Tobago seems incapable of protecting its women. I fear Trinidad and Tobago is not yet a nation. Violence altogether must be stopped in Trinidad and Tobago. In less than 2 months, 67 persons have been murdered in this country. 67. Now, in the first 2 months of the year, if I check it correctly, in this year it is 9, 3 and 1, 4. That's, 3 and 2, 5. That is 59 days in the 2 months. So that we have had 67 murders in 59 days. Oh, well, no, the month is done yet. The month is done yet. I do apologize. So that it tells you where we're going in this country. This thing like Syria. That is true. That's the only way I can think about it. Now, we talk about 67 people murdered. But what do we know of persons wounded, cut, maimed? You know, men have a tendency to jack up a woman on her toes, choked, and so on and so forth, battered. We don't have those figures. And perhaps those figures will tell us precisely where we are in terms of not being a nation. Neither do we know the full extent of violence committed across the country. We don't. And we don't know the full extent, more importantly, about the violence committed against women. Because we only hear about it when it's real bad, acid bad. But what about the women who every day are beaten because they look at somebody else, they talk to the neighbor, they ain't cook the food on time, and the list goes on and on. I want to say to you that all of that have to come to an end, an abrupt end. We have a tendency in Trinidad and Tobago, you know, sometimes you speak about the issues that confront us, and people say to me, well, that can't work here. How the dickens do you know it can't work here if we have never tried? I have advocated compulsory national service in this country for 15 years. And lately I have changed my tune. I've said to people, had we introduced compulsory national service, many of those gang leaders and gang members may not have been gang members, you know. They might have been masons, electricians, carpenters, joiners, and the list goes on and on. Give that a consideration as you argue against compulsory national service. This country has had more social programs to bring people out of the darkness and the weaknesses of the alleys and byways. But the people who challenge this country and challenge its stability aren't going to volunteer for anything. It's like the men beating women. They are not going to volunteer for any therapy, how to keep their hand in the pocket. And that's the reality. So that we have to change the modalities and how we deal with these challenges. Violence against women is a national issue which embraces all arms of government. My considered view is that this critical challenge requires meaningful intervention by our lawmakers. It demands laws in sync with the nature of the beast. Because it takes too long to implement corrective action if a woman is being beaten night and day and a matter comes before the court. It takes too long. And so, if our nation has to become as violent as it has, or rather if our nation has become as violent as it has, we have to seek out corrective action. We have to say that this is a place where violence against women is not only a national issue, but it is an issue for the parliament and the politicians of this country. It is a political issue. It is no longer a social issue. I rest my case. Now, Professor Watson, I really hope I am not beaten up for this matter. Pardon? Because in a sense, I really thought that this topic, this forum this morning was so crucial. These kinds of debates and discussion are the kinds of debates and discussion that should not only be held here on the university campus, but we should, as it were, have a bandwagon of town meetings and take this debate and this discussion throughout all the villages and the communities of Trinidad and Tobago. I think people need to come out and to understand what is being said and understand that this thing that is happening behind closed doors is not a real thing. It is not something that should remain behind closed doors. It must come out because we must dispense with it. We have got to find a place in Trinidad and Tobago where men and women truly stand side by side, each providing strength to the other. If we begin to do that, we might well arrive at conclusions where the politicians themselves will begin to understand that they are not God's chosen ones. Because from the looks of things, if I measure the last government and I measure the present government, I know this country ain't going too fast anywhere.